Thank you for your patience. We'll be starting the service for Mrs. Harriet L. Susman shortly. We just have a few brief announcements before the family returns into the chapel. Following this service, the interment will take place at Jewish Waldheim in Forest Park. For those of you driving to the cemetery, we'll provide your vehicles with an orange funeral sticker for the inside portion of the front windshield, as well as a magnetic flag for on top of your car. And please use your bright headlights and your flashers at all times during the procession. We are taking city streets, so if you feel like you want to use your horn, please use it liberally going through the intersections. The Shiva will be observed at the Israel residence in Northbrook at 1431 Hemlock Knoll Terrace. That's today from 2:30 to 8:30 p.m., Friday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday evening 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. All this information is listed in the service folder you received today. And for those of you viewing online, the information is also on our website. I just want a gentle reminder for those of you that are present here at the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. Following this service, I'm going to be asking the pallbearers to step forward to help escort Mrs. Susman's casket from the chapel. Would be her son-in-law, Robert Israel, Dan Levin, Jake Levin, Eli Levin, Mark Greenberg, and Raymond Rockney. The service this morning will be officiated by Rabbi Judah Dardick, a friend of the family, and Cantor Stephen Storr from Congregation Beth Shalom in Northbrook. I'll ask everyone to please rise now as the family enters the sanctuary.
L'kol zman ve'et l'kol chefetz tachat hashemayim. So read the words from the book of Ecclesiastes. A season is set for everything and a time for every experience under the heavens. A time to dance, a time to cry, a time for birth and a time to die. A time to speak and a time to sit quietly within our thoughts. A time to plant, a time to harvest. A time to seek, time to lose. A time for war, a time for peace, and how we all pray for the sweet peace for Harriet's soul, for peace within this world, and peace of mind for the family, knowing how dearly and devotedly you cared for her over these many years. In Proverbs, we have the reading of Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. It's a fitting psalm for today, but we'd also like to think of Harriet today as not only a woman of valor, but of a woman of value to her family. Eshet Chayil me'imsa v'rachok mipninim michra batach balev bala v'shala lo yachsar גמלת הוא טוב ולא רע כל ימי חייה. כפה פורסל יניב ידה שלך לאביון. עוזבדה לבושה ותשחק ליום אחרון. פי אפתך בחוכמה ותורת חסד על לשונה. סופי הליכות בית ולחם עצלות לא תאכל, קמו בניה וישרוה, בלה והללה. רבות בנות עשו חיל, ואת עלית על כולנה, שקר החן והבל היופי, אישה יראת אדוני היא תתעלה. תנו לה מפרי ידיך, והללו ושרי מעשיה. The traditional translation is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. She opened her hand to the needy. She opened her mouth with kindness and wisdom. Her children bless her, as does her husband. I want to read another modern translation, not specifically about this proverb, but rather about a mother. Your mother is always with you. She's the whisper of the leaves as you walk down the street and the smell of bleach on your fresh laundered socks. You think of her by the familiar scent of her perfume or the foods that she cooked. She is part of your breath on a cold winter's day, and the whispers are embedded in the sound of the rain that lull you to sleep. She's the cool hand on your forehead when you are not well. A mother lives inside your laughter and is crystallized in every teardrop. She's the place from where you came, your first home, and she's the map that you have followed every step of your life. She's your first love, and then your first heartbreak, your first friend, and maybe even your first enemy. But nothing on earth will ever separate you. Not time, not space, not even death. In the pamphlets provided to you by the chapel, there's the 23rd Psalm. I'd like to ask you, please, to read it in the English, and then I will chant it in the Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me to lie down in... He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. House of the Lord. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, b'nodeshe yar b'tzeni, al mei menuchot yenhaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yanecheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. גם כי אלך בגט סל מוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך הם לא ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי Deshanta Vashem en Roshi, Kosi Rivaya, Aktava Chesed Yirdefuni, Kol Yemechayai, Veshavti Bevet Adonai, Liorech Yami. Two brief things before we call upon Eli to speak to us on behalf of the family. A poem, I believe, that is fitting for today, and I hope I'm not mistaken. It's a reading called Two Mothers Remembered. I had two mothers I claim, two different people, yet with the same name. Two separate women, diverse by design, but I loved them both because they were mine. The first was the mother who carried me here, gave birth and nurtured and launched my career. She was the one whose features I bear, complete with the facial expressions I wear. She gave her love, which follows me yet, along with the examples in life that she set. As I got older, she somehow younger grew, and we'd laugh just as mothers and daughters would do. But then came the time that her mind clouded so, and I sensed that the mother I knew would soon go. So quickly she changed and turned into the other, a stranger who dressed in the clothes of my mother. Oh, she looked the same, at least at arm's length, but now she was the child and I was her strength. We'd come full circle, we women three, my mother the first, the second, and me. And if my own children should come to a day when a new mother comes and the old goes away, I'd ask of them nothing that I didn't do. Just love both of your mothers as both have loved you. In the book of Psalms that you just read, you see the words, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil." The psalmist reminds us that we will not get lost in our grief, in our sadness, and yet we feel like we are living in a valley. Emotionally, we are in a depression, if you will, and yet the psalmist says, you will get through this. When you walk through the storm, keep your chin up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of the lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. Eli.
I can't say that I was exactly aware that I was going to be talking this soon, but thank you all for coming. I'm going to speak up. Okay. I'm going to share a couple words about Harriet, about Arnani. I think I'm supposed to be representing the brood, although it's going to be hard to do that as we've all had our own meaningful relationships with her. But I think if I had to choose two words to describe her, they would be strong and loving. She used to say something, she'd be like, strong like ox. And she really, truly was strong. And at the same time, I would say in equal measure, loving. I can think of when we were kids and she would come for Rosh Hashanah every year, California, how she would wake us up in the morning, tell us we were going to be late to school, and tell us to clean our rooms, and strong and loving, and how she would send us to school with my dad's cider, not realizing that it had large sums of alcohol in it, and strong and loving. And, you know, she and I would go for these walks to check out these open houses, and, you know, she'd hold my hand, and strong and loving. And I think of a recent moment where we were in the car, so it shows how recent it was. She was driving several years ago. It was at a particular point in my life, and she would sometimes say these things that were very cryptic, but, you know, at the same time probably possessed a great deal of meaning. And she said to me, I think sensing that I was a little bit uncertain in that moment, she said, there will always be a piece of you that's you, and because you'll always have that, you'll be fine. And yeah, I think it's the same thing for her. Over the years, I think she always held a piece of her, and that was that strength and that love. And we love her very much, and we'll miss her. So, thank you.
Thank you, Eli, and thank you, Cantor Star. Somewhere around 15 or so years ago, I made a promise to my somewhat congregant and definitely friend, Harriet, that when the time came, if there was any way that I could be here, I would be here, and today I am fulfilling that promise. Like everyone here, I am mourning the loss of a feisty, strong, capable, loving. Strong and loving was excellent, Eli. You were definitely on target. Real doer of a woman. And as I went over notes that I had from conversations years ago, Sherman, when I interviewed you for a somewhat autobiographical book, and the conversations I had with Harriet myself, experiences, time together, conversations I had and notes that I read from you, Marla, you, Galen, it all came together. And for me, I heard uncanny echoes of the great Jewish matriarch, Sarah Imenu. Sarah, let me explain what I mean. Start with a few early points. Sherman, when we sat together a few minutes ago, you were lamenting age. You're 8 years older than Harriet. Avraham, Sarah's husband, was 10 years older than her. They too met by a family relationship. The Midrash tells us that Sarah was the daughter of Avram's brother, Haran. There's a family relationship by marriage that brought you and Harriet together as well, Sherman. Avram and Sarah were from the same hometown, known to have both been from Haran. That's why the family kept going back. Go back and find a wife from the family town, from the extended family. Well, while Harriet was born in Mount Kisco, it was a very short-lived term there due to father's temporary work in Sing Sing, or for Sing Sing, I should say, and then returned home. They were Chicagoans. Came back to Chicago, back to the hometown where she would meet her beloved. Avraham brought Sarah into a whole new philosophy. He taught her great ideas that he was going to bring to the world. Sherman, your initial introduction to Harriet, to be her chemistry tutor, to teach her. Teaching done by future husband to future wife. The Torah says that when Avram and Sarah come to Israel, they then, due to a famine, pretty quickly, have to head to Egypt. And upon entry into Egypt, it's a very odd verse, very odd pasuk. It says, Ata yadati ki isha yifat mar'at. That Avram suddenly realizes, whoa, you're a beautiful woman. Somehow it hadn't hit him yet. But at this moment he realizes. And Harriet, who when you first met her was a girl, grew into a beautiful woman who would be your wife. Early on, we don't see much about Sarah cooking at all. Yet, by a bit later, she's cooking a feast for the angels that come to visit. We're actually given the menu of what she's cooking. You told me years ago, Sherman, that dinner in the early years was salmon patties or pizza. Those were the options. But that didn't stick around because I saw what she cooked for Rosh Hashanah in Galen's home as the years went on. It started in one place. It developed. Sarah made an entire life around Avraham so that he could go out and share their message with the world. It's what Chazal, what our rabbis call the bracha be'isa, that there was a miracle that all of the dough, right, all the sustenance that Sarah provided was blessed, and it grew and grew. Harriet did that for you, Sherman. Over the years, different places that you lived while you were working on your doctorates, she worked at this job and that job and that job to support and to build an entire life and to build a home around you and for you. That was the bracha be'isa, the blessing in the dough. Sarah and Avram together raised 2 children, I am not opining who is Ishmael and who is Yitzchak. I will leave that. You're welcome. And after marriage came their Lech Lecha moment, their moment to move away from their family. In this case, not quite as far as to go to Israel as to go to Park Forest, but that would be where they would start their home. Moved a little bit away, enough distance. And there, taking care of family was the number one priority. That involved dance lessons, it involved band practice, it involved the campfire girls, and it involved Hebrew school. All the things that you all shared with me and that I heard the stories about, where Harriet was running the home, raising the family, and Sherman being there and creating a space, and that was the partnership. You lamented that, well, you weren't around all that much. You were doing great things. That was the deal. That was the partnership. And she did her portion, and you did yours. That was the way that Avram and Sarah worked together, and that was the way that Sherman and Harriet worked together. Avram and Sarah left Egypt, and it's part of a life change and a bit of a career change. They're given livestock. They have to deal with Lot, Avram's nephew. They have animals. It's clear that wherever they go, they're taking it with them. Harriet didn't have any livestock. She did have cats and dogs and service dogs, therapy dogs, also very much a part of her life. I noticed on the bit of information, there was information about making donations to be able to support animals, part of her love in life. And it also came through in terms of her work. The Jewish people, founded by Avram and Sarah, are often referred to as the people of the book. And Harriet was a librarian, a research librarian. The Jewish people inherit the land of Israel and go there for the first time with Avram and Sarah. And Harriet was a real estate broker, sharing with people to get to their real estate, to their place that they will be. And as a pioneering Jewish matriarch, her involvement in Ort, in the National Council of Jewish Women, Hadassah, Histadrut, the list goes on, of the ways in which Harriet was out there as the years went on to be building the Jewish community. Now, not everything is parallel. I've made to you much of the case for the echoes that I hear. There are those things that I have no reason to believe that when happy, Sarah ever did this. But that was what I always saw. I have no reason to believe that when fruit came on the table, that Sarah ever would have called it a banana mama, nana mama, nana mama, whatever that was. But there it was. There's no time in Sarah's recorded history of life with her family that she ever took her children and their friends out of the flooding river on a camping trip to bring them home all muddy and put them in front of the fire and give them hot chocolate. I don't think that exactly happened. Israel's not so prone to flooding. But it did happen for Harriet, and it did happen for the girls. And I never believe there's anything that indicates that Sarah ever had to stop Yitzchak from riding a motorcycle. But okay, some differences can be there. Avram and Sarah had a very long-lived marriage. And then after Avraham buries his beloved wife, he lives for a while as a surviving spouse, missing her and thinking of her every day. Sherman, 68 years is a very long time. And you loved this woman. I don't know how to tell you how to go on. It's very, very difficult. I can tell you that the greatest among our people have done it. And we do it remembering every single day. And that for you, for Marla and Bob, for Galen and Dan, Becca, Sam, Jake, Eli, and Geffen, and Zoe, I don't have any way or any words that make it go away. It doesn't work like that. I can tell you that our tradition is we don't bury bodies. We don't bury people, we bury bodies. It's sort of like a shell. If you imagine the caterpillar that you've so lovingly cared for ends up in a chrysalis for a bit. And you wait and you watch and you wait and you watch. And then one day that chrysalis breaks open and the butterfly flies away. Is it a beautiful thing for a butterfly to be free? Yes. Does every one of us want the butterfly back? Of course, because all that's left is this empty shell. When we go to a cemetery and we bury a body, we give it the utmost of respect. That's what tahara is about. That's what burial is about. Respecting the shell that held someone we love. But we don't bury our loved ones because they're not there anymore. It's the shell. And that's where we're headed shortly, is to bury the shell of an amazing, strong, courageous, loving, giving woman. The name that I'll read during the Kel Maleh prayer that we say is a dual name. Sarai became Sarah over the course of her life. Hashkaleva became Chana Chava. I'll say the Kel Maleh in a moment, noting that as Rav Yishaya Mitrani wrote, his opinion was that the Eshet Chayil, that the cantor so beautifully read and sang earlier, was actually written for Sarah Imenu. It's written for all the matriarchs, but particularly her. That's Rav Yishaya, the Rav Mitrani's opinion. And that every Friday night, when Eshet Chayil is sung in your homes, be thinking of all the Neshei Chayil, but very much including the one who may not be here any longer physically, but will be in every memory, in all of our hearts, in every moment. Think of her on Shabbat. Think of her whenever we think of her, knowing that the neshama is what we believe lives on, even if it's not right here with us. Please rise for Kel Maleh. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bamrumim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Kanfei Ashchina, B'Ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tohorim, Kizohar Harakim Asirim, Et Nishmat Hashkaleva Chana Chava Bat Ephraim, Shehalcha L'Olama, Bavur She'anachnu Mitpalim B'at Haskarat Nishmata, Began Eden Tehei Menuchata, Lachen Bal Harachamim, Yastirehet B'Tzeter Knafav Li'Olamim, V'Yitzror B'Tzror Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Unachlata, Tanuch B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomar, Amen. Harriet, we will miss you terribly, and we know that you will also be with us.